Hi, my name is Jay Rothman, and welcome to Real Men, Real Talk Live. Welcome to the studio. It's good to see you, Josh, Jeff, Charles, and Evis Heath coming in from down under.
Yeah, baby.
Right. How you guys doing tonight?
Doing good.
We're hanging in. We're hanging in.
Mm-hmm. Life is happening.
Tonight's the topic that's a hot one. No doubt that as men, you know, we navigate through relationships, and we have the ebbs and flows of life, and this is a hot topic because we're going to deep dive. We're going to get right into relationships, how we show up in them. Are we the giver? Are we the taker? How are we showing up from an emotional standpoint, from a financial standpoint, from an intimacy standpoint? And so what I like to do is just take us right in. Charles, you're up. You're right in the hot seat.
Wow, you put me in.
Wow.
Wow. Oh, man, I didn't know I was going to go first.
Yeah.
You know, are we the giver and the taker? You know, and I thought about that earlier, and I kind of shared something with you on that. And I thought there were levels to that too as well, where, you know, it's easy to say, are we the giver or are we the taker? You know, and it's easy for us to say, oh no, you know, man, I love to cook, I love to clean, I love to, you know, be romantic. I'm the giver when it comes to that. But then there's a little bit deeper dive that goes into that. You know, I mean, when we really think of, you know, the type of woman that we may want and or need, or and then it kind of changes, right? Because we may not be the giver as we think, or the so-called taker as we think, when we start to deep dive a little bit more. So I kind of wanted to hear everybody kind of flush it out a little bit, and then I wanted to kind of go back around and kind of pull in on some of those thoughts. So you guys jump in there, and then I'm gonna kind of play the devil's advocate per se, and come in and challenge you with a thought that I had. How about that?
Yeah, I like that. You know, the truth of the matter is, this is one of those topics that we all struggle with. I mean, just in the United States alone, the divorce rate is over 50%. Right now, as we are in 2020, relationships, a lot of them are perhaps struggling. People are unsure where they're at. They're overdosing on too much time together, not enough time apart through shelter in place or quarantines. And there's all kinds of havoc going on, perhaps in homes. In other homes, people are getting closer. Couples are, in fact, getting closer. And if we're not talking about couples, we could even be talking about family members. You know, a lot of people in their 20s went back home to shelter in place with their families. And so there's a whole new dynamic going on right now across the globe that involves relationships. It doesn't have to just be, we're not just talking about the relationship between man and woman, or, you know, monogamous relationships as a couple, but just relationships in general. How are we showing up? And are we showing up? Are we the giver? Are we the taker? Are we there for needs? Are we there for wants? Are we there for attachment? Are we there for connection? And so, Josh Ritcher, I'd like to invite you, welcome, coming in from Southern California. I'm going to put you right into the hot seat right now, because I know you've always got something hot and juicy to share as you navigate through this life of yours, this single life, in relationships and out. So where are you tonight?
Oh, man. Well, it's off topic from the giver or the taker. So if we want to do a round of that, you can always come back to me and I'll unload where I am. Or you could just throw me in.
You know what? You know, this is your time. So,
oh man.
Well, hey, these boys are palming it off, Jay. I don't know, man.
Pass it on, Josh. Pass it over to Jeff. Pass it on.
So, so what? Let me tell you what happened, and then I'll tell you how I've been. The process of discovery that I've been through since this. And I've been dating this girl, and she was having trouble with times of me pulling back. And she's just such this giving, open heart. And I realized through her being frustrated with me, of course, that I keep people maybe at arm's length a bit, and I let the friends and family in closer, of course, but I realized I still do this, and she was feeling that, and she was not happy about it, and I was just not sharing some of maybe the struggles I've been going through lately. I feel like I'm kind of close to a burnout. I've been working really hard, and I wasn't sharing those feelings with her, and she was feeling that distance, and she's really sensitive to that. And I just thought it was me kind of taking care of my stuff and not worrying her. But I realized, man, it's me keeping people at arm's length. And of course, being an awake and aware guy, I was like, shit, why do I do that? What's underneath that? And I just realized today, it comes back to not being enough. And I keep people at arm's length because I'm afraid they're going to find out I'm not enough. But what the damage that's caused in my life, like you talked about in the opening of the show, it's not just closeness with a partner. I've been robbing myself of closeness with family and closeness with friends and people and my human beings. That's what this life is about, is human connection and that love and that sharing. And I realized that I've been robbing myself of that. And what that fear of not being enough has done, and what I looked back today and I saw what it's done in my professional life too, man. I killed myself to be on those hit shows and to be enough, to work. I worked myself to the bone because I needed that. I needed people to see that I was enough. And deep down, it's because I don't feel it.
Hey, Josh, I'm going to just invite you just to take a nice deep breath and just pause for a moment here. Allow yourself to feel into what you just shared. It's powerful. I mean, this is why we show up each week now, because this is real. I mean, this is you on real time. This is not scripted. This is you sharing from your heart space.
When you guys said this week was relationships, I was like, oh shit.
But can I? I'm gonna jump in for a second. You know, it's amazing because, you know, when I look at you, Josh, and all you've accomplished, I don't, as a guy, I'm talking from a guy, it's hard for me to see that you feel like that, man, because you're such, I mean, I see what you offer us. I see what you're probably offering work. And I know that you probably put that same energy into someone you care about.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how you could ever think that, bro. You are, man, bro, you probably, bro, there's not a lot of men who are in touch and who really are caring and loving and even care as much as you're talking about. You know, so man, bro, I don't see it. I mean, honestly, you're a hell of a guy. You know, and that's why I'm glad to be with all of you guys, because I can see that each one, when I talk to Jeff, you know, and what he's been through, when I see Evis and what he does during his day, and Jay and his life journeys and transformation. You know, it's an honor to maybe I'm just a little cocky. I don't know. but man, we have something to offer, not just a relationship, but I think the world. You know, so it's hard for me. I mean, where did that come from, Josh? I mean,
I've been trying to figure it out myself. You know, it's a fresh realization. So it's here, it's now, it's ground zero. And yeah, I mean, I learned from my folks. I remember a dinner party that my folks had, and we were getting the house ready, and my folks were arguing in the kitchen. And the doorbell rang, the first guest arrived, and the door, you know, they open the door, it's hugs all around, and the people ask, you know, how have you been? And my folks said, we're great. And I was like, wait a minute, you weren't great. You guys were just arguing, you know, and yelling at each other in the kitchen. So I learned in that moment, don't show people your real feelings and project that you're fine. And I've been aware of that for a little while. So I think there's some of that, but as far as the worthiness piece, I mean, I'd love to know. I don't. This is fresh and new and now. So thank you guys for being open hearts and holding space, because this is a space that we can do this work and talk about this, and that's what makes this show special, and that's why it's. Today was scary showing up. I'll say it, because I knew I couldn't lie here, and you guys are my guys, and we're helping people by being real.
Wow. Real quick, I mean, I'm not to take over, Jay. I'd love to know what the audience who is watching this, I mean, do they think men are like this? I mean, what do they think? And then, you know, somebody else, can jump in, but I would love to know what the especially what the females think. That you know.
There you go, Charles.
Thanks, Alexandra.
Alexandra says, I'm turning into a huge Josh fan. Respect. Thanks for your honesty. Now, Josh, here's the beautiful thing is that I'm gonna show up right now. I'm gonna be vulnerable. I'm gonna put it on the line. The way you show up in a relationship with me is just absolutely beautiful. The way you feel safe, you communicate, you tell me how you feel emotionally when you're struggling. You tell on yourself when you're feeling good. You share, you celebrate, you honor it, you respect it. But most importantly, how you show up relational with me. You see, it's healthy because it's not about we're not attached. It's about we're connected. We have mutual respect for each other. And it shows up. I remember the first time, look, we've done multiple, we had been together maybe 6 times virtually doing shows on the original Real Men, Real Talk Raw. And then the first time we met was just, right about at the new year. And we met in person, and it was just an absolutely beautiful exchange, you know, to be able to physically touch you and hug you, man to man, and still feel safe in that moment. And we broke bread, and we sat there in a restaurant, and I think we were in Santa Monica for a couple of hours, at least 2 or 3 hours. You do show up, and you have so much love to give, and you show it in a beautiful way. What I know from my own experience of having to navigate through my own pain of not showing up in my best, healthiest self way for decades was that it's about feeling safe and understanding that most of what we create is a story that comes from our thoughts, comes from our belief system, it comes from what we heard growing up. But it's not the truth. It's just a story that, as you know, is created in our mind. Where the truth lies is what's in the heart space, or what some refer to in the spiritual community as the soul space. And there's where you do show up. At least you showed up in the relationship with me, and Charles, as for the short time that he's known you, he's acknowledged that tonight. What I'd like to do is I want to invite Evis Heath, the man of the land from down under, jump in on this conversation and give your own perspective.
Man, isn't this just beautiful, my brothers and our audience out there? And as always, thank you for letting me jump on the show, man. This is just absolute magic happening in my eyes. And look, I see this with a lot of men that I'm currently helping on their transformations. And for me personally, this week, man, I don't know, is it everyone feeling this energy out there? There's this energy for these beautiful things we call emotions to come to the surface. You know, I do a little bit of the stuff and I look up at the stars and I see how these charts are playing out. And it just so happens to be that we had a full moon, man, if you saw that pumping over the last couple of nights in Scorpio. Now, here in the land down under, let me just give you a little bit of entree and we'll dive in deep. Here in the land down under, we go into our cooler months. We go into this cool season and getting into that winter. We start to retract. We start to curl up. Now, you guys over there, you start to get a little bit warmer, starting to expand, spreading those wings, getting those shoulders back. And I start to see a lot of these energies playing out with us as human beings. And, you know, we talked about relationships today. I mean, Jay, you and myself, man, we've gone in deep in episodes between each other, called each other out. So again, let me just dissect that work. I love dissecting these words. And when I look at that word relationship, you look at the R-E and the root or the etymology of R means to go back or to connect. Now, lation also means to come together or connect. So what are we trying to go back and connect the ship of? See where we've got to go deep here, my brothers? See, the ship, the vessel that is trying to reconnect is you. Yeah. It's me. We need to go back on board and dive in deep to some of this stuff that is coming to the surface, that some of these beautiful planets are bringing to the surface right now, and allow ourselves to be able to step into some of these beautiful relationships at our highest version, not from wounded eyes. Let me just say that again. Step into ourselves from our highest version, not from wounded eyes, meaning the inner child. The inner child is coming to the surface. And like my man Jay the Rothman just said, through that heart central, that intuition, that imagination, it is trying to express itself through the throat and allow it to set itself free. So it is a deep, deep time in this ascension. And we now have that beautiful time to be staying at home, be isolated, and really come in touch with that highest version of ourselves. So yeah, brother, oh man, I honor your story there, brother, and thanks for stepping up today, man.
So real quick, Evis, are you the giver or the taker in a relationship, baby?
Ooh, you calling me out, bro. You're calling me out now. Now, look, I thought of those two words, and you know, again, man, let's dive in deep, brothers, because we've got to start learning a little bit more about who we are. So when we look at that giver, you know, this is very actionable, you would say. That taker, it's that very receptive, or that little sit back and I'll just take whatever. So we're looking at this feminine and this masculine energy again. Now, part of this beautiful spiritual ascension that's going on down here is all about fine-tuning and finding that balance within self. Giver and taker. Well, let's go there. Let's go there, Charles. You called me out, man. We talked about intimacy. All right. So I guess we've got to bring up the conversation. Boy, would intimacy, you know, we align that idea of sex, don't we? Would you agree? Yeah, all right. I've got you there.
It could be more.
It could be more. Now, this is what I want to hear. This is what I want to hear. Because when we look at ourselves, we naturally, as men, have our sexual genitalia on the outside of ourselves. The female has it internally, inside. All right. So we're that action, we're that go-getter, we're that one that wants to go there and let's put it out there, penetrate. All right. But it's the feminine energy right now. She's sitting back passive. She's sitting back receptive. She only has to step into the base of creation because that's what she is. So being the giver or taker in a relationship, man, you're out of tune, brothers. This is balance. We've got to find the balance within that feminine and masculinity. So when we do find that balance, let's call that intimacy. We say, and a good friend by the name of Jessica Alstrom always says it, we see that into me I see, because that mirror consciousness or that reflection of those people that you're bringing into your relationships is going to be talking about what you see within yourself. And I think we've just seen that here this morning with my beautiful brother, Josh Ritcher, standing up on Real Men Talk Live. So, yeah, I hope that answers your question, Charles, a little bit.
A little bit.
It's deep, bro.
Hey, Josh, I'm going to ask you. You've been sitting here just absorbing all this conversation. What's going on for you? What are you processing? What are you feeling on the inside? Not in the head, but in the heart.
Charles, you said, where did it come from? And I've been thinking about that. And my tech company crash 5 years ago, which included my financial ruin. I think it's tied to finances, man. And I think it's hard to date. I've dated, 3 or 4 women in the last 5 years since my tech crash and my emotional crash, which was my, emotional awakening. But it's really hard to date women when all of them have more money than you. And I feel like I can't buy all the dinners, and I can't be that giver that I want to be. And I am a giver, at my core, and that's who I am. And I want to give to a partner. And it's hard feeling like a man when I've got all this debt on my shoulders and all my money goes to that. And I don't, I can't treat a woman the way that I want to treat a woman, or she does have to buy dinners occasionally and I have to share that. And so how that feels as a guy feels inadequate and feels like I'm not enough. I mean, I think it's certainly a part of it.
Isn't that, I think that's the journey. That's the best thing. I remember, when me and my son's mom, we were young and, man, we didn't have anything. There were times where we were, making top ramen and frankfurters and soda. And those were actually the best times with someone. Now everything that, has gotten complicated and we have to feel like we need certain things to be able to contribute. But, me personally, I love a woman that, says, you know what, I got dinner tonight. And you know what, I might have, she may say, I'll take care of you for the next 2 or 3 nights. Don't worry about it, baby. And then matter of fact, I'm going to cook your dinner. I welcome that, because that shows me that all my efforts that I want to give, this person is willing to give me back the same thing, if not more. So I think that's sexy. I don't think that, hey, if they have more and they're willing to be a part of even helping you come up, because there are women who will say, you know what, man, what do you need? Let me get on the phone. Let me make calls. Let me help your business thrive. Let me help us win. So I don't know if I don't know, Jeff. How do you feel about that, Jeff? How do you see it?
Mate, Jeff's just been sitting in the back there observing all these.
Oh my God, there's just
amazing.
so much going through my heart and my mind. But I so identify with what Josh is talking about. For me, it's about the balance of giving and receiving, as Evis just put it. But Josh, I so identify with everything that you're talking about. Back in the beginning of this year, the end of January, everything, all my issues about what we're talking about right now came to the fore. How I totally judged myself. Am I worthy enough? Am I good enough for in my relationships? How I identified success in my life, and it all came back to money. It all came back to how are they going to perceive me? How can I take care of someone if they're making more money than me? If I'm only have this much money in my bank account, how can I take care of that person? That's the underlying thing with me. That's my programming. And it ran my life pretty much all the way up until the end of January. And I wondered why that I always liked exactly what you just said, Josh. I kept relationships at arm's length. You're only going to see enough. I'm only going to give you enough, because my good enough, my not worthy enough is so much more powerful than opening my heart to receive love. Exactly, Charles, what you just said is what I want. Is to open myself up, let go of the judgment and shame of myself, to open my heart to begin to receive love, because I'm very good at giving. I'm giving and I'm giving. But underneath it in the program, I'm giving with an attachment. And that attachment is, if I keep on giving to you, then you're going to love me. Then you're going to see that I'm worthy, that I'm good enough. So it's not authentic, and my life, it probably hasn't been that authentic, even though I've tried to be, because there's that little attachment underneath that if I give and keep on giving and give and give and give, then you're going to love me. Then you're going to see that I'm worthy, and then you're going to see that I'm good enough. But for me, the intense self-judgment of I'm not enough, I'm not good enough, that was attached to my bank account, that says, how will anybody love me if I only have this amount of money in my bank account? That's absurd. It's incredibly absurd, but it was part of my programming. And I'm learning right now
And it's not pure love either at that point, because we're asking for something in return.
Yes, it's an attachment. It's loving with an attachment but it was unconscious or in my subconscious.
Totally.
The attachment was based upon my intense, deep wounding, my programming, based upon mom and dad never even saying you're good enough. So I'm doing my best, and it's still in that process of turning this around to move deeper within and to see that I am good enough exactly as I am, and then have that relationship where there is that balance of giving and receiving, even though the judgment might slip in from time to time, but opening my heart to that vulnerability of letting me be somebody, take care of me for a second or two, but not take care of me. It's about that balance of giving and receiving, opening my heart up to receive without judgment. Man, people will say, I love you, Jeff. I love you as you are, just as Charles was just saying to Josh. And then it's like, okay, you feel your heart shut down a little bit, because that unworthiness, that not good enough, keeps the heart closed of not receiving it, because that unworthiness and that judgment and shame and that not good enough is still there. So how can I receive that when that programming is still there?
And it's exhausting because you're
Totally.
killing yourself
Yeah.
to get it. And when you get it, you can't even hear it. You
Nope.
can't, you don't feel it.
No, my life was up until the end of January. My life was based upon all of that, and it came to a screeching halt at the end of January, where I imploded, and then realized all of what we're talking about right now, and I just had to shift and change it. I had to really, really shift and change my relationship with me, because that's what it comes down to. It comes down to
Evis, let me ask you,
having.
Evis, if you don't mind, I'd like you to jump in here and maybe give your interpretation of what Jackie Boyle has just shared.
Jackie, she's from the land down under, isn't she, Charles?
She is, and she's got a great product that I'm actually taking right now. It's called Emulin. It's for oxidative stress and inflammation, which we all need to but we'll hit us up for a little bit more information on that.
Can I just what she said, materialistic items are exactly that, whereas emotional honesty is really what anyone really wants to see. That's what we all want. And that's what us as guys want. And what I want is for us to open up to know that the illusion and the myth that I'm living, that Josh talked about, is just that. It's our programming, and it's an illusion. It's an illusion that has been created for us. And what we really want is that deep emotional connection of opening our hearts to receive and give in balance, and know that we're worthy.
But I've had two. Sorry, Jay. One more thing. I've had two though, where I've dated somebody, and I did show that vulnerability and that openness, and it was too much for that person. She couldn't handle it, and so that reaffirmed to me, don't show that part. Don't go there, because it's too much.
Hey, Evis.
And that's where it gets tricky, yeah. I mean, that resentment coming from that feminine energy, I mean, our beautiful feminine out there, I mean, when us brothers, we're going to turn up like this, like Brother Josh has turned up, and Jeff are talking about their stories tonight, then we can't show resentment towards that masculine energy. We have to actually hold the space for that masculine energy to be able to be vulnerable. So I mentioned that in last week's show. That is the true strength going into this new earth. It's being able to, like I said, keep balancing these energies. But just to answer Jackie's question there quickly, what you asked, Jay, and in regards to, you know, that emotional honesty as opposed to those material things, yeah, all this stuff is about, you know, we need to pull ourselves out of these human vessels for a second and really start being aware and observe the energies that are going into some of this stuff. I mean, Josh, you mentioned that you were unconscious of some of these behaviors. That's emotions, man. They're flooding that part of your brain that is just giving you those foggy glasses. So we become really unconscious to the emotions that we're addicted to based on past circumstances that may have traumatized us. And this doesn't have to be serious trauma, but this is the stuff that we need to heal to really get that emotional honesty and bring it up to the plate. Just to keep it shallow and just keep it short, Jay.
Hey, I wanted to jump in. I love Rena's comment. He said, when we do all the giving and won't receive, then we rob the other of the joy of giving. And that is so key. And I think even for me, and I'm just going on the past or whatever, within the first 5 minutes, I can see whether this person is a team player, a giver, a taker. And I don't even let the conversation go any further than that if this person is all about them. Once again, you know, it's a different time and different day and age. I mean, and I'll go back to an example of somebody I was dating, and I remember, you know, one thing with me, man, with my ex or whatever, I literally would take care of all the bills. They didn't have to pay anything. I would take care. I would come home, clean the house, wash the dishes, cook, everything. Not saying that they weren't a giver, but that's just me. I just love doing all of that stuff. But there was somebody I was dating who I remember, one thing with me, the only thing I love is, man, I love a good massage. You know, I love somebody to rub my head while I'm, you know, laying on their lap and you know, rub my back and my feet. Head. That's all I ask. And there are some women who love doing that. Literally, they will go out their way to do that. And I was, you know, dating someone who I remember sitting with them, and I thought to myself, they really weren't into that. And I thought, you know what? I will never get a real decent massage. And, you know, they may do it for 2 or 3 minutes or whatever like that, but, and I thought, I'm going to be robbing myself of happiness, because I don't want to look and remember and think, man, I wish I had somebody who was giving. And it's a small thing, but it's one of those things where you kind of have to look and say, is this person meeting me where I want to meet them? Because, you know, I was a giver in that relationship. I mean, man, but if they didn't see enough to say, you know what, this is all he's asking for, you know, then that's something that you kind of have to say. You have to meet that person where they're at, and realize that it's a two-way street, and we have to support each other. We have to be there for each other. And whether it's them cooking or me cooking or rubbing their feet, whatever, it should be literally 50-50. And I started right from the gate and see if this person is someone that I even want to continue that conversation with, because, you know, that's just me.
I just want to take a moment here just to acknowledge all 4 of you men that are just bringing it home tonight. I mean, you're real, and this conversation is just like spot on, and it's just showing such tremendous vulnerability from all of you. I want to take a moment here to break it down. From my perspective, I had spent close to 30 years in a marriage, and I'm no longer in that marriage. I'm in a new relationship that's coming up to 5 years now. And you know what I had to learn when I stepped out of my almost 3 decades of being in a relationship was that I was always living in my headspace in my relationship. And that was because I was just disconnected from myself. I was always, headspace to me meant I was living in the ego space. All my thoughts and all my decisions, all my choices, all my behaviors were being created in my mind and extended into my behavior. And what's changed for me in my own healing journey of coming home to myself is that I choose not to live in my headspace today. I choose to live in my heart space. And if another person, whether it be my fiance or a friend, man or female, is uncomfortable with how I show up, then it's not about me. It's where they are in their own journey, in their own shadows and wounds, and their own healing of themselves from their earlier years and their experiences and pivotal moments. And so, you know, one of the things I wanted to bring this back to you, Josh, was that just because you had one experience with a woman who was uncomfortable with you showing up and sharing vulnerability and sharing your emotions with her and being honest and having integrity for yourself and in a relationship, it wasn't because you weren't worthy of it. It was because she has her own shadows that she hasn't worked through. And she's been, maybe, you know, without knowing the backstory, it's not important. What's important is that everybody shows up right where they're at. And sometimes we always should be paying attention to not only the words that they speak, but how they show up behaviorally. And know that if you start to see the signpost, let's say I call it, you know, like the yellow, don't wait till it gets red and, you know, you're now in a stop zone. I mean, hit that caution and take your foot off the pedal and really look at, you know, what are we walking into? What are we jumping into? And understand that if someone is not comfortable with how you're showing up, and you're showing up in a loving, kind way, and you're not able to accept that, it's not about you or I. That's about their journey, and it's about where they're at. And here's an opportunity for me to say, no, thank you. No, thank you. Because when I could say no, thank you to you, I'm saying yes to me because I know I'm worthy of more than that. How do I know that? Is because when I met a woman that was willing to accept me at my lowest point of my life and create a safe space for me to feel safe enough to share all my truths, every single one of them, every dark shadow I exposed, because I knew that as long as I held on to those dark shadows, I was going to continue to live in bondage, inner bondage. And that was no longer working for me because, you see, I was near death. And so for me, it was do or die. And it was due. It was time to show up and just trust that the healthier I got, the healthier my relationships would become, because I would attract healthier people in my life. Evis is shaking his head, yes. Evis, I'm going to turn it over to you. What do you, I'm going to give you a moment here to shine, brother.
Man, 100%, brother. Like, you know, I've listened to your beautiful story, Jay, a couple of times, and I always grab a gold nugget each time I go. But what you're saying there, man, look, we really do have this chance right now. I mean, how more clearer does it have to be put in front of us to let go of some of these old things from the past, to really step into that divine self, to attract and become this magnetic energy that's going to bring in that divine partner or that divine relationship that you're looking into your life. Now, Jay, you mentioned, you know, you're on a particular vibration when you attracted the particular person, the right person into your life. And it was where you were currently at. And this is what it comes down to. We've got to ask ourselves, we've got to stop. And like I said, come outside of ourselves and look down into that vessel that is you, and ask yourself about a few of your behaviors, a few of your habits, a few of your addictions. Ask yourself what you're avoiding. Ask yourself what you're not stepping up to in your life to really confront and, you know, take on that so-called shadow self, to work with it. Don't have to disable it altogether, but work with it to step into that light and really attract that right person in your life. Because it's not just about the relationship with another person. It's the relationship you have with your cat. It's the relationship you have with the land. It's the relationship you have with your family. But most importantly, it's that relationship, like we're saying, that you have with yourself. That is the ultimate relationship right now. And until you work through those particular patterns that I'm talking about, you will keep attracting in your trauma. It's as simple as that. We really do have a beautiful time. And I guess, yeah, all the brothers have touched on it today, man. It's been deep. So, yeah, Jay, hey, that covers it a little bit, man.
Yeah, it's just beautiful. You know what I love is as you are about to express your thoughts, Evis, I see a post hit that's nailing exactly what you're jumping right into. Talk about synchronicity in this moment between ourselves and our audience, our community that are with us in this moment. They are holding space for us. These beautiful men and women that are with us right here, right now, have created this safe space for us as men to show up and do what we're doing. So I want to thank those that have joined us live and or in replay. Thank you so much for supporting Real Men, Real Talk Live. Without you, we'd just be five men sitting in a Zoom conference and having this conversation. But with this conversation, we're able to touch so many more lives, bring inspiration, bring hope to those that are maybe seeking a relationship, exiting out of a relationship, or beginning a new relationship, that it is possible. It is possible that just because you had pain and hurt and wounds and traumas in your past relationship, it doesn't mean that each one's going to be the same. Where the difference comes in, where the change comes in, is when we do some work. You see, in so many relationships, we like to point the finger and say, oh, they were this or they were that, and we'll blame them for all the things that went wrong. When in fact, the truth of the matter is that the reason things went wrong is because we have to hold ourselves 100% accountable for our part in it. And it's up to them to hold themselves accountable for their part. Now that's up to them. I don't have to worry about where they go with it. But I could tell you this is that when my wife and I separated, I was willing to go 100% deep in and hold myself accountable and acknowledge the things that I said and the things that I did that were hurtful and painful for both her and I. And through that process, it really gave me permission to start to heal those wounds. And instead of holding on to the anger and the resentment and the pain and the hurt and the confusion and everything else that went with a 30-year relationship, it allowed me to start to forgive not only my ex-wife, but to forgive myself for my part, for all the pain that I caused. Because it's not one, it's both, and so so what I'd like to do is I'd like to transition us. We got about 15 minutes till this show is over. I'd like to take us into another part of relationships, which in fact is another difficult part to talk about for men and women. But it's one that's really important, which is intimacy. Men like to refer to it as sex. Women like to refer to it as intimacy. How can we bring the two together in this moment and really kind of break this down? Like, what does that look like in a relationship, and how can we show up in a healthier way for ourselves and for our partners? Who wants to be the first to volunteer? We got real men here.
Come on, Charles. Come on, bro.
Jeff, look, Jeff. Jeff's got a freaky side. He's a little quiet, but he's got a freaky side. Come on, Jeff.
Oh my God. Years ago back in New York, my teacher, mentor, therapist, Robert Baker, said it's all about combining sex and love. The learning curve is combining sex and love, because we can just have sex with our hearts closed and use it as a total physical tool of expenditure of energy. But it's really about opening our heart space and combining the two. Combining the intimacy of the two. Once again, it's about opening our hearts to receiving intimacy. Really, really opening our hearts to receive the energy of another, the exchange of energy of two people in a moment of intimacy, in a moment of love, in a moment of having sex. Really about allowing ourselves to be that vulnerable in those moments as men, and allowing our hearts to open and being in the moment of an exchange of energy that is unlike any other in that moment. It's a moment of vulnerability. It's a moment of opening our hearts, and a moment of expression, and combining sex and love in those moments. Many of us use sex to deflect love. Many of us use sex as an addiction, as part of our addiction, to deflect love. And it's really about opening our hearts to love, to the love inside of our heart, the love of another, and exchanging that energy on a level that is otherworldly, of being in a moment of that deep exchange of energy in that moment of where love is concerned. And that's what I'm working towards. I'm creating that new relation. Wow. That new relationship that I have never known of me, that I have that inside of me, that I can finally give it without the attachment and opening my heart and receive it like I never have before.
Wow.
It's something that I'm shifting my relationship, as Jay said, of releasing what no longer serves me, to have that, to have that togetherness, that intimacy, that oneness with someone else, where I can just allow myself to be vulnerable, to feel vulnerable, and be in that one moment, that oneness moment with another.
Good comment from Rachel too. Seriously, it is so much better when you combine both. 1,000%.
Yep.
But you hit it on the head, Jeff, man. You know, there's that difference between sex and making love, isn't there, man?
Yep. I mean, there's those moments where raw sex, but it's still, I mean, we've all had that. We've all had that. If we're really honest, we've all had that. And most of the people out there watching us and listening to us have had that. How'd you feel afterwards?
Empty.
Totally.
It was like you needed it again. It didn't feel, because I did that. I was in an 8.5-year relationship that was very vanilla, and I have a strong sex drive, and when I broke it off, I went crazy. Not crazy, but I was trying to fill that void.
Yeah.
And you can't fill it with sex.
It's not what we want.
No.
I mean, if everybody's really honest about what they want, and everybody out there watching, you know, ask yourself, what do you want? What do you truly, truly want? Do you want a momentary hit to your nervous system that satisfies your addiction? Or do you want your heart to open and have a fulfilling, intimate relationship? And, you know, answer that question honestly. I know I can.
And I'd like to jump in for 2 seconds because, you know, and I don't get as deep as you guys. I wish I don't know what happened to me, but I remember because you know when my mother and father separated, all that I kind of learned from my father was I don't like to say the womanizer, but he was like a ladies' man, and so with him, that's all I saw. And then I had, you know, the crew around the block where I grew up in Long Island, and you know, I really learned about, you know, life and women from the boys, and you know how they think. And then my mother, she never dated, literally, the whole time, so I didn't understand the relationship between men and women. I thought women were just literally, it was just, you know, almost a sexual thing. It wasn't until literally later on. I remember I was in California, I was in my boat, and I literally that night I was just broke down in tears because I realized that I could be friends with women, that it just wasn't about one thing. And I really hadn't had women as friends up until then. And then, you know, I was going to this whole Bible class and everything like that. And then I had great friends, women who were great friends to me. So it was that moment where I kind of realized that, you know, I had some trauma that I had to kind of fix. That you know, I was going about. I didn't really have too many relationships per se. I had long relationships with my kids' mothers and things like that. But trust me, I was a dog for a little while out there, and I would always wonder where that came from. And you know, now to be honest, you know, while of course everybody loves sex, I want to make love. I want to be in love. I want to make love. I want that love to be all encompassing, where it is that giving, that taking, that best friend, that partner, that person who you know that is going to wake you up because you got a meeting, or who's going to make sure that, that your tea or your coffee is made the way you like it. But then also at the same time, is willing to be as freaky as you ever want to be. And it's all encompassing. So I just think that, once again, of course, sex and romance and making love is all a part of it. But it took me many years to figure this out. So
beautiful, beautiful, Charles. Thank you so much for showing up tonight and showing your vulnerability. By the way, we got to talk when the show's over. I didn't know you grew up in Long Island. That's where I grew up too, Long Island, New York. We got to trade some talk here, some snacks, pizza shops in town.
Yeah.
But we got about 5 minutes to go to the hour. And what I want to do is I want to close this out. I want to ask each one of you to give us 30 to 45 seconds, some type of tip for men that perhaps are tuning in for the first time, that perhaps you can give them some guidance on what you think they can do to help improve their relationship that they're either in or the one that they are seeking to be in. Evis, you want to start?
Right at me, brother. Well, I think, first of all, Jay, you don't have to prove anything. This is healing time. We're all healing on this planet right now. So it is really, like I said, just to keep this nice and short, we need to let go of emotional trauma-based attachments, and then that will start really opening up more heart-based connections. So this is the difference between these codependent relationships and what I would say would be more of a partnership in the new earth. Because when we get more of a partnership, well, now, there's no codependency on each other. You actually have your independency still, and beautifully, you come together and interdependent, you now create a light for your whole community, yourself, your family, and all those people around you. So it is a beautiful time of healing, and to let go of some of those old things of the past to really step into that higher version and your highest relationships as well.
Beautiful. Thank you. Evis Heath-The-Man from the land from down under. Across the pond, as they say. Jeff Fasano, coming in from Nashville, Tennessee. Close us out with your 30 seconds of thought. After I unmute you here.
And I'm from Staten Island, New York.
Oh, yes, I know that.
Yes. The first thing that comes to my heart, my mind, is always look into the mirror. Always be open to look into the mirror when anything is happening in any relationship. Because the only relationship that we're ever having is the relationship we're having with ourselves. And any relationship we carry outside of ourselves is just a mirror or a reflection of that. So if we're ready and able to always look in the mirror first, let go of blaming and shaming, that will serve us in the long run in any relationship that we're having, whether it's an intimate partnership, a business partnership, a friendship, or anything like that. I do my best to make it a practice to always look in the mirror first, look at my part of it, because every relationship is a 50-50 deal, a balance of giving and receiving, a 50-50 deal. But always to look in the mirror first, catch yourself if you're blaming and shaming another, and being open to simply look and ask yourself, how can I simply take responsibility for me? And then with the other person, say, this is my responsibility. This is what I've seen in the mirror. Show me the mirror. And then let's open our communication and talk about it.
Love that. I love that, Jeff Fasano. Thank you so much. Evis, actually, Josh, you're up.
I was pretty much I was right in alignment with Jeff, and I was gonna say that relationships are an amazing mirror, and if we are open to seeing what comes back in that mirror, that reflection that we see, and those emotions and the things that get brought up. These are wonderful opportunities. These people are showing us our deepest fears, vulnerabilities, and the things that we can, like Evis was saying, work on and work through to show up whole. And that's a beautiful partnership. I work on showing up whole for me, and then I can just celebrate and with that other person, celebrate in this life and celebrate in this journey together. And so it's my job to show up whole, and it's my job to take those cues and those reflections that I see and the things that might be hard to look at, like what I'm going through right now, but to take that as an opportunity. I truly deeply see it as an opportunity, and I'm excited to work through this so it doesn't affect my relationships for the rest of my life.
Beautiful. I love that. Right there are words of inspiration and hope. You know, what it takes our willingness to have the courage. It's about courage. And once we push through courage, once you push through fear and we have the courage, our life will improve, our relationships will improve. I'd like to invite Charles Mattocks, coming in from Tampa, Florida, to close us out with your closing thoughts.
I'm going to keep it real short. I got three things. And hearing all of this, I would definitely say any men that are listening, definitely reach out to other men that you could have these type of conversations with, because this is rare to have men who are so in touch, in tune, who are sharing, because obviously we have a large female audience. But I could see that they're learning from this as well and sharing and giving back to us, and that interchange is powerful. But then we also have some men on here who may need to hear what we're sharing, how we're sharing it as we're growing together. And the second thing, this audience, I gotta thank you guys, man, because we've got some whether it's Mary, Scott, Stephanie, Elena, Rachel, Alexandria, Mango. We've got some folks here who are showing up, and we gotta say a big thank you for them. Once again, I'm a plugger, but we have some big plans with this program. We're working behind the scenes, everyone, to take this show to a major network, because we believe in this message. And every day we're getting, great feedback and messages where people are being touched by this conversation. And I think this is so needed, because, what we see in the press and in the media is all this negative stuff, right? And there are good people who are in tune with their emotions, who want to do what's right, who are fighting every day to take care of their families, who are fighting every day to be a better person, who need this positive energy. There are more positive people out here than there are negative, but all we see is the negative. So make sure you guys keep sharing and coming back, because you make us, and none of us have egos here. We just want to do something, and Jade has put something together that we just want to be able to leave something for someone else. So that's our mission here. And we need each one of you to continue to help us with that mission. Then the last thing I'm going to say is, of course, I've got a new, can you see my new soap line here? It's called Sabali, baby. It's a candle line, Sabali candles, Candles. It's a beautiful soap, all natural soy soap. I got to sell it. I got to promote myself.
How's that product going to improve your relationship? Any idea yet? Is there any secret?
But seriously, I thank all of us right here, because this energy and this bond is something that I look forward to, because I don't always get a chance to build with guys, and to be able to share with you, it means a whole lot to me. And trust me, you're gonna see some tears eventually come out of here. All right, take it away.
I just want to take a moment.
Jay got muted.
I want to take a moment to honor and acknowledge each one of you men, because it's simple, not easy. I spent a lot of time deep diving into my own self to have the courage to step forward and start to share, who I really am, not who I projected I thought I was. And instead of focusing and worrying about how I am perceived out in my circle of life, I focused more on who I truly was at my core, and allowing that man to step forward and just trust the universe that that man will be accepted, because that man is me. And, today I could say this is that my relationship with other people outside of myself wouldn't be where it was at if I hadn't come home to myself, if I hadn't learned how to forgive myself, forgive my ancestors, forgive all the pain that was once very, very, very prevalent, very close to the surface. And knowing that through the process of forgiveness of myself and others, that my relationships would improve, because what I lacked before was something called self-love. And once we experience what that truly can feel like at the deepest part of ourself, the root of ourself, at our heart space, our soul, our core, it changes everything in our life. It changes how we show up for others. It changes how we show up for ourselves. And with that, next week, who knows where the topic's going to go? We got a whole week to figure it out. We may just continue where we're at. I want to thank those that have joined us tonight on Real Men, Real Talk Live. Guys, thanks for joining me. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.